what do you think of the outcome that it's been so far? What differently would you see with Tibbs as the coach, and what types of things would you like to see changed?
I mean, at times you can see that the players on the team are playing a little harder, especially in that OKC game. But of course, that was Saunders' first game he was coaching. But since then, I haven't seen a lot out of him, and all I ever see is people on TV talking about how Saunders isn't yelling at his players and how he's just constantly, I don't want to say being nice, but he's being nice to the players and the players are enjoying themselves and
High fives.
yeah,
And
high fives and sitting down and
pumping his fists.
the players calling him Rye like he's one of their teammates and slapping him on the back of the head and all this other stuff, playing around with him. I mean, to me, that's kind of ridiculous. But I mean, I guess that's kind of what you get with a 32-year-old coach coming in. I mean, he's the age of some of these guys that are playing with him. I don't like it. I mean, against Philadelphia, I honestly thought I was hoping that Thibs would miraculously show up and start yelling at the players on the sideline. It was ridiculous. The effort they gave in that game was
Pathetic.
Pathetic.
They're so weak-minded.
They are.
They're weak freaking minded. And you know why they're weak-minded? Our fans and our media make them weak-minded.
Why did Jimmy Butler show up to that game and circle that game like Teague said they had that game circled? Why did he show up and have that game circled? Why didn't we show up and have that game circled?
Yeah, I tweeted about that. They're saying that the Sixers had that game circled, and I was like, Timberwolves look like they're still wandering around looking for a pen. Not saying enough about circling the game. It looked like they didn't even want. I was watching that game. It looked like most of the Wolves players wanted to be anywhere else on earth other than there, and it was super disappointing. Like, I expected an effort, not even just a requisite effort of any NBA game, but you would like to think that your team would get up for that. Reporting, true or not, whether I believe it or not, the reporting was that, Butler kind of called into question Towns and Wiggins as far as their, dedication and overall, want to, their desire to win. And if you can't even, bring requisite effort on the first game you face them after being traded, like, it was kind of all you needed to know. Like, I mean, I think Butler was kind of validated, until further notice with that effort.
What did we hear, like, before the season started, how he came into practice and beat us with a third-string unit on the court?
Yeah.
And he said he scored, one bucket?
Yeah.
Wouldn't Wiggins and Cat want to show up and beat that guy?
Well,
wouldn't the rest of the team want to show up and beat that guy?
Does that lead into Saunders? So the reason I bring it up is because we actually have a question on Facebook here from one of our listeners, Justin Larson. He had a question. It said, Ryan Saunders, cute story or possible solution as a coach for this franchise? Is his cute story and how he's trying to connect with the players on a personal level and not be a coach, is that leading into them being weak-minded?
My thing is, and I was at the game last night, and so I had a lot of time to think about it while I was watching, but I just think the Timberwolves overall, like in franchise history, they just really have no reputation outside of losing. Like, there's no intimidation factor. No teams come into Target Center feeling like it's a tough place to play. They just don't have that, reputation as a winner, and none of our players really have a reputation of, doing anything really to change that, and it's just always going to be that way. Like, I saw a clip of Andrew Wiggins after the game, kind of, he said, we're just going to move on, throw this game away. They're playing Phoenix the next two games, and he said, like, reference those as two winnable games. And I'm like, you can't even reference those as two winnable games. We've lost so-called winnable games this year, and just taking comfort in being able to throw away a bad performance. I mean, last night I wouldn't say it was a bad performance, but I mean, Wiggins down the stretch, he misses free throws again, which is a recurring problem. And then one of the final few possessions, he jumps in the air, not knowing what he's gonna do, throws the ball away for an easy fast break, and 2 free points for the Spurs. It just was demoralizing, on the scoreboard and mentally. And then after the game, you say, we're going to put this one behind us and we have 2 winnable games coming up. I mean, I don't think the Timberwolves are good enough to consider anything a shoe-in to win, against anybody. So, I don't know. I was disappointed by that.
Pat, you were going over some of the numbers in terms of the Thibs difference.
Well, let me answer Justin's question, and I won't be long-winded.
Yeah,
but,
sure, go ahead.
I want to say it's both. I think it is. When Thibs was fired, I have my concerns about Saunders with no head coaching experience to speak of. Taking over an NBA team that's fighting for a playoff spot, I just wasn't thrilled about that. So right now I lean that it's a cute story, but, with his hometown connections, Glenn Taylor obviously is close to his dad. I think he's going to get a chance to be the long-term coach, whether he deserves it or not.
It's definitely a cute story, but it's almost like the luster's passed.
Well, yeah, because it lasted one day. The only person that still cares is Jim Peterson. Seriously, the local media cares because now they get access. So it's a big thing for them. They can go talk to a coach of an NBA team. They can get access to $140 million players, $150 million players. They can write their stories. Thibs had the locker room shut down. It is what it is. He ran things differently. But with that being said, they had a sense of toughness to them. I don't think there's a sense of toughness to this team anymore. I'm watching sloppy play. The second game that Ryan Saunders was coaching, Teague opened up the game with a turnover. We won the tip. The very first possession of the game, Teague walks right down the court and turns it over. And it was a shitty turnover. It wasn't even a normal... Why is Wiggins disappearing in games, too? Isn't that Saunders?
Well, that's a good point you made, Jason. Yeah. Like, I was thinking about that earlier, too. Like, as I just referenced about the Wolves having no reputation as far as winners, the only thing that really gave them any kind of semblance of toughness was Tom Thibodeau. His past success, obviously, his style is a little more, probably abrasive than people are used to around here. But, I mean, with that, he had some equity as a winner, and he brought some kind of toughness and, personal responsibility as far as players' performance on the court. And I think with that gone, Ryan Saunders doesn't bring any of that. So it's kind of like we're back to square one as far as, this being a Target Center being a tough place to play. Like, Thibs brought a little bit to that, not enough to make it like a thing where teams actually feared coming in here. But with Saunders, it's just back to square one all over the board, and that goes along with it. It's just back to we're just another NBA team that teams come in here and they're not scared, they're not worried about us putting forth an effort that's gonna blow them off the court.
I mean, why does Chicago still like Tom Thibodeau so much? I mean, because he had success in Chicago. I mean, they gave him more than a couple years, and 1 year with his basically superstar player and Jimmy Butler here in Minnesota. Why did it basically seemed like to the fans that it was a bad move in the first place? I mean, I don't know how many people I've seen talk about how bad of a hire Thibs was from the moment he got hired. Just because is it because everybody knows
it's the money? Minnesota doesn't like people who make money.
Well, yeah, that probably has something to do with it.
It 100% does. What did he sign for? 26?
It was like $8 million a year, 5 for 40.
Jesus, 40?
Yeah, but
oh my God, that's so much money.
He had 2 titles, president of basketball operations and the head coach. I mean,
right, which is too. Honestly, I think a lot of organizations do that, and I think it's too much. Not everybody's Bill Belichick. No matter what sport you're in, not everybody can be that guy.
No.
It's really hard to be a GM and a head coach of a team.
Well, especially with, where Thibs is coming from. I mean, it has a coach and has him probably knowing that basically all year his job was on the hot seat, he wanted to win now.
Yep.
I mean, if he could somehow have gotten this team in the playoffs or whatever, it'd be tough to fire the guy. But as a president of basketball operations, you also have to kind of, figure into the future and stuff like that. You just really can't do that.
Who was the best free agent the Wolves have ever signed prior to Tom Thibodeau being here?
Mike James.
Marco
Or
Yarick.
maybe Kevin Martin.
Yeah.
And look who Thibs brought in. Taj Gibson, Jeff Teague, Derrick Rose. Who else? I'm missing someone else. Tolliver.
People are going to tell you it's just former Chicago Bulls players.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But
that's going to be their argument.
Regardless, they're probably... I mean, you could maybe argue Kevin Martin, but those are probably the 4 best free agents the Wolves have ever signed.
Didn't they get Kevin Martin coming off of like an injury, though? I mean, I guess I don't really remember that. I mean, that might have been 5 or 6 years ago, but...
Yeah, I don't remember if he was injured.
And
I know...
He also played for...
He was in the Harden trade, and I think he kind of had a down year in OKC. If I remember right. I don't know if he was injured, though, but... I mean, he obviously... I don't think his stock was through the roof at the point we signed him.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, he was a nice player, but... Thibs brought in... I mean, Bulls are not... They're nice players. They're contributors. They're good players. And it's not always been easy to get free agents that are actually good with options to come here.
He's not bringing in bad players. I mean...
So when you ask free agents and the best free agents we signed, are you considering before Thibodeau? Are you considering all the way back to the Flip era? Because obviously Latrell Sprewell would be in that mix as well.
I think we traded for him.
Did we trade for him?
Yeah.
So, literally speaking, all the way back to the beginning of Glenn Taylor buying the team, what is the best free agent that the Wolves have ever signed?
What about Trenton Hassel? Was he a free agent signing? I mean, he turned out okay, but...
Off the top of my head, I think he was, yeah, but... I mean, he was a role player. He was good at his role, but I just mean, like, I mean, I guess you could even say that about the Wolves, the guys at Thibs signed. I mean, they excel in their role, but even then, like, to have 4 guys that, like I said, had other options, were, actually coveted free agents to come here, just, we didn't have a long history of that, and it was kind of, changed through Tom Thibodeau, so.
I mean, we haven't ever really signed a free agent star. You brought up, Kevin Martin earlier, and he was with OKC the year before, I believe. He came over here and played 77 games, didn't start any, and was just kind of a role player off the bench for OKC. So,
yeah.
I mean, you can say he was kind of a role player too. I mean, yeah, we've never signed
I feel like he was into his 30s too when we got him, wasn't he?
Yeah, and also he had, that connection with Rick Adelman.
Right.
From playing for him in Sacramento and stuff. So
fucking Kmart.
I mean, if you want to say Thibodeau's just signing his old Chicago Bulls guys, I mean,
he kind of is, but at the same time, that's a playoff team.
We had nobody to sign any guys before then.
Yeah, I mean, just I guess my thoughts on...
Look at how well Rose has worked out.
Yeah, I mean, he's number 2 in the West in, backcourt all-star voting.
Is Derrick Rose gone after this year?
Probably.
He's gonna,
why?
Because he's going to need more money than the veterans minimum that we're giving him.
So
now.
why don't we pay him more money? He's our own player. We can keep him, right?
I'm worried we're going into another rebuild.
We're rebuilding on a playoff team for the first time in 14 years.
Yeah, we probably are.
It's looking that way.
Fucking makes sense.
If you see the Twitter talk, I mean, they want to trade Rose, trade Gibson. I mean, it's going down a path of starting over. You got a 32-year-old head coach with no experience. Like, all the signs are pointing that way, so it's disappointing to me. That's what I feared when Thibs got fired, and it's already starting to go that direction, so it's kind of sad.
I mean, again, all you're hearing for rumors and stuff as far as, coaches coming in are all guys that we've been through before. I mean, really, what has Fred Hoiberg ever done in the NBA to warrant another opportunity? He got an opportunity in Chicago, and
man,
terrible.
Ryan Saunders hasn't even coached a youth basketball team as a head coach. So we've already given the keys to a guy with 0 head coaching experience, and that includes freaking school. That includes high school. That includes college. That includes everything in his life. He has always rode the bench with the players and been that buffer for the head coach. He's always tried to connect with the guys and say, oh, my dad taught me this, and I think you should do things this way. And I just don't know if that's the wave of the future for this team. Is this something that we should be looking forward to? Ryan Saunders? I'm just going to go out and start buying season tickets now because Ryan Saunders, who has 0 coaching experience, is our new basketball coach.
And nobody's going to do that right now. Nobody's going to start buying Timberwolves tickets because they hired Ryan Saunders.
But we fired him. We fired Thibodeau to sell tickets. Even though it was already Prince night and the tickets were already sold, and we want to attribute that to Ryan Saunders, but whatever. People already bought the purple jersey package. There was already 16,000 tickets sold anyway, and we're giving credit to Ryan Saunders for selling a freaking shutout. But maybe it's time to just start buying some season tickets because I'm so excited that another freaking baby... Is it baby flip or is it baby flop?
Yeah, but the call center coach will call up...
Dude!
The call center coach will call up potential... season ticket holders and talk to them on the phone. So
right.
I was at the game yesterday, and I was looking at Twitter during the game, and I saw this tweet from Dane Moore, who covers the Wolves. He said, newly hired Jerry Seasting heavily influencing rotation decisions from the bench for the Wolves. Had Saunders switch from Taj Gibson, who was at the scorer's table ready to check in, to Anthony Tolliver because the Spurs had a smaller lineup. And it kind of raised my eyebrows because we hired him the day before the game, and he's already making key rotation decisions, substitution decisions. It's I don't know, it kind of speaks to Saunders, maybe not being ready for this.
He's totally not ready for it.
He's 32 years old. I don't know. It's tough for me to say that he's ready. And by no means, again, I'm not saying he's not going to be a good coach sometime. In 10 years, I would probably love to have Ryan Saunders here. But just at 32 years old and you're fighting for a playoff spot right now, I just don't think that Ryan Saunders is ready for it.
Well, we were fighting for a playoff spot until we fired our head coach. So if you look at the milestones that happened throughout this regular season, screw last year, let's just move on. We have the pre-trade era, right? So there's pre-Jimmy Butler trade where Thibs didn't have control of the team. The media was throwing everybody under the bus. It was an absolute shit show. We heard about the practice, etc., etc., etc. Turns out Jimmy's just a fucking dick if you go ask Philadelphia. And then we have post-Jimmy Butler trade, okay? And then we have post-Thibodeau firing. So, let's forget about the first part of the year because our best player was basically backstabbing us and throwing us under the bus, not playing, bringing his girlfriend Rachel Nichols in to talk about how great of a basketball player he is. He works so hard and he's so into fashion. He's so cool. Nobody gives a fuck. So, let's move on to post-Jimmy Butler trade. Okay? Post-Jimmy Butler trade, Pat, was Tom Thibodeau coaching us to a playoff 8 seed or higher. I don't care what seed it is. Were we a playoff team under Tom Thibodeau?
Well, I guess record-wise, we were not a playoff team. I mean, we were only a couple games out, but our offensive rating and our defensive rating was at, 10 and 12. We were 12th in offense and 10th in defense. So that to me is a team that can compete for a playoff spot. Ever since Thibodeau's firing, though.
So we're gonna go post Thibodeau.
Yeah.
So during basically the main portion stretch, the largest part in terms of a evaluation of the regular season so far Like, we're talking multiple games here. How many games was he a coach? 20, 30?
Who?
Thibs.
Thibodeau?
40.
Was it 40?
Right, so we're halfway through the season, and post Jimmy Butler trade, we're talking 30. How many games into the season were we?
We
traded?
were
Well,
4-9 when we
November
traded.
12th, so
post Jimmy Butler trade, which is a huge sample size, we're talking 1/4 of the season. We technically were a playoff team. Okay? So you're about to compare the numbers of a playoff team to, for some reason, we fired a coach who was a playoff coach and also won the game by 20 points against Los Angeles Lakers. Don't give a shit if LeBron wasn't playing. What are the numbers?
Well, ever since then, the Timberwolves are 15th in offensive rating, and they are 27th in defensive rating, which
27th's not good.
no, it's not. And I mean, everybody can say that it's because of Robert Covington being hurt and everything, and that has a lot to do with the defensive rating. But even if you add him, I don't see this team competing for a playoff spot.
Why?
I honestly, I think it's the head coach. I don't know
I
if
have
he
to
knows what
agree
he's doing.
because in Tibbs' last few games, I was feeling like it was looking up, like they were getting ready to kind of put together a run to try and get, sneak into the playoffs. And after they fired him, like, just my gut feeling was, it just feels like I said earlier, our reference, it just feels like it's heading towards a rebuild now.
Wasn't it back-to-back 20-point wins?
I think it was 17 and 22, so yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and then you fire a guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we beat OKC in, Saunders' first coaching game, but I don't know. I haven't seen much from
The Wolves could be really
Saunders.
good if they got the Wiggins effort they got that night.
Yeah.
Every game.
If Wiggins would, stop standing in the corner like he did last game against San Antonio, that'd be great.